Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we have a session about building, deploying, and scaling Java services to fit the size of your business. My name is Hassan Mahsine. I'm the program manager for Microsoft Reactor in Abu Dhabi. Microsoft Reactors are hubs for founders and developers to meet, learn, and connect to local peers, as well as industry-leading ideas and technology from Microsoft partners and the open source community. It's also home to the Microsoft for Startups program. With a diverse mix of hands-on workshops, expert panels, and community events, there is something for everyone. Check out our calendar of events on meetup.com and join our coming sessions. Our speaker today is Rory Preddy. Rory works in the developer relations team at Microsoft as a senior cloud advocate for Java. Cloud advocates use their deep research skills to help professional cloud developers discover and successfully use Microsoft's platform. A seasoned speaker whose talks are both meaningful, humorous, and Rory travels around the world empowering developers to achieve more. Keep the Q&A tab open as I'll be sharing some resources relating to today's session, and that's where you can send us all your questions during the session. This is one of the first talks around JBoss. So exciting to have the session at the Reactor. The slides, content you will see today, Rory has prepared for the session, and would like to have the mic over to him to take us through this topic. Thank you, Rory, for joining us today.
Thanks, Hazem. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be here, and I'm just going to share my screen. There's always that moment of silence that you have where you're sharing your screen, where you wonder and you ask the question, can you actually see it? I'm guessing you can see it. Let's move you to the biggest screen there. That's great. And we're live, and I've got everything set up, and my terminal's done, and we've got some nice slides here. This is a very interesting topic. I've been a Java developer for 20+ years, and I grew up on JBoss, and now for JBoss to come on Azure App Services, as announced in late September, was just a pleasure, because now we can take all of these applications that ran on one time, the most popular application server, and we can migrate them to the cloud onto JBoss, both from legacy and also what I'm going to show you today using MicroProfile, which is a very new and innovative way thought on how clouds and Jakarta EE should be created and architected. So let's create our slideshow. We want to go, let's go, and we want to go play from current slide. There we go. You should see my slides, and we've already discussed the actual Reactor slides, and Hazem, which is the producer, and you'll be handling the questions and also putting some links. If you don't know me, it's Rory Preddy, and you can reach me on @Rory Preddy on Twitter or LinkedIn, Rory Preddy. And I do on my Twitter profile 50% memes and 50% Azure and Microsoft updates. Always a really fun place to be if you follow me on @Rory Preddy. All of these slides are going to be made available, all the links, the workshops, the demos, all the little details. And the nice thing about it, this is being a new technology, this is the definitive source of, and the most definitive source that you will find on the underlying topics. So you can go to aka.ms/jboss-azure, and there's slides and also labs and tutorials that you can do, and you can get yourself the nice tutorial that I've prepared for you. With the help of the product team, is Postgres, JBoss, and Azure connect to a database and create a really nice enterprise application. And don't worry, those slides will be up a little bit later also. So what do we got to do? What do we got to show you today? So we've got 4 real sections. We've got JBoss and Azure App Service. I'm going to go over it and tell you a little bit about the features. Then we're going to discuss MicroProfile, because that's part of the demo I'm going to do. I'm going to scale up and scaffold out MicroProfile application, which is a microservice application, and throw it onto JBoss and Azure App Service. Now, you could also do this with Spring, but you know, JBoss is a really fully fledged Jakarta EE server. And you want to take advantage of all of those new features and the Jakarta EE MicroProfile standard. And then we're going to go through in a demo. And the demo is very simple. You'll see it's like 5 lines, and it's in the slide deck, and you can get started immediately. Then I've got some resources, and that's where the fun starts, because that's also the slides, and I'm going to go through the homework that you're going to do, and you connect with a Postgres database and create a more fully fledged enterprise application. It's going to take you about 1 to 2 hours to actually do all of that. Okay, so let's go through first App Service on Linux. A little bit of a background if you haven't played around with Azure on an App Service on Linux. So it's a managed platform. What does that mean? It means that it's PaaS, Platform as a Service, and you really don't have to worry about maintenance, security, and patching. Well, you do have to worry about security, but really not the low-level infrastructure as a code security. It's also got built-in CI/CD, and I really like that, because if I want to build a DevOps pipeline, it's got a little blade there. You just go DevOps pipeline, and it just does all of that for you. You can also integrate with virtual networks and to run in isolated and dedicated app service environments. It's got tons and tons of really great enterprise level security and compliance that you can leverage off. And then the topic of this the session is scale to a enterprise grade platform. Now, I've got some nice demos that I'm going to show you on how it actually scales and why you want to use the cloud, because you could run this really on your PC or your laptop and just open a port if you wanted to. So why cloud? And then finally, simplified operations with built-in monitoring. I'm going to show you some of that monitoring. You can see the monitoring there, also in the metrics there. It's a great way. You're talking about distributed systems. When you go to the cloud, you distribute across it. You put it on CDNs. You put it all over the world, and you want to be able to look at your system from a dashboard and make sure you know exactly the current status for all of that. So now that we've discussed App Service and Linux, let's talk about JBoss EAP on App Service Linux. You can see here on the left-hand side, my right-hand side, is that all you have to do now to choose JBoss, and this is since late September, is just have a little drop down there to say on the Java Web Service Stack is JBoss EAP. That's it. That's all you have to do. And there's no other configuration, and you get a full JBoss EAP platform. Similar to how we used to do it, that you used to run either on Java or Tomcat. Now you've got Java, standalone Java, or Tomcat, or JBoss EAP. So it's built into the app server on Linux. So it's on public preview, meaning that standalone mode, so you can't do a high availability cluster right now. And we don't recommend for production. It's more to like kick the tires right now. And then you can, when we go general availability, we'll give you an SLA link to that. There's 2 SKUs, so the levels of tiering. So you've got the premium, and then you've also got the isolated. And the offer includes, when we do go general availability, you have the official Red Hat Enterprise Application Platform. You also have integrated support, and that's when you get general availability. So you'll have the SLA linked, and that will be maintained also by Microsoft and also Red Hat. So you'll have a license for support, which is great, because if you've ever signed up with Red Hat support, you'll know that this is a really premium support. They have a really great SLA, and it's a great option to have. Pricing, and right now it's just linked to the standard app service pricing. It's pay as you go only. So why JBoss EAP on App Service Linux? I've already kind of teased with you, and there's many different reasons for that. Let's go through. First of all, lift and shift. You've got legacy applications. You've got JBoss App Service there. You want to just pop it into the cloud, you can do that, and you can lift and shift, and you can start migrating your systems there. Jakarta EE. So JBoss EAP 7.2 supports Jakarta EE 7 and eventually 8. And there's so many different specifications and technologies you can take advantage of with Jakarta EE. And remember, Jakarta EE is part of the Eclipse Foundation now, and it's really got great momentum. We're going to go a little bit more information a little bit later. Integrated support, you've got Red Hat and Microsoft supporting you there. So on the application platform, your log request goes to Red Hat. On the actual Azure App Service, your log request, it goes to Microsoft. And we both collaborate with each other to make sure that it is a wondrous experience. Subscription, you now subscribe out of the box to your Red Hat support, which prior to that you had to have enterprise agreements and documentation. Managed service, so we already kind of mentioned this though. So managed service, you can actually really bring the cost down and have so many options around that. Also integrate with all of the other Azure services with, managed identity, database connection services, everything that you know that you love of Azure, you're going to be able to manage and integrate with. Lower RT costs, and we're going to go through there on how to lower the RT costs with auto scaling. I know with Rory, auto scaling is actually hiring the cost. No, it's not. Auto scaling is all about lowering the cost. User scenarios, so there's so many different user scenarios around why to go to JBoss EAP, around also business features. We're going to go through some of the business features when we look at some of the strategies. Workload considerations, so if you've got a WebLogic, JBoss, WebSphere, and Spring Boot application, you want to run it in your one VNet or your one cloud architecture. You don't want to run it all over different servers there. So it's nice to kind of consolidate your workload into one cloud platform. And of course, time to market. We're going to look at how to auto scale. Black Friday is coming up right now. Are you ready for that? I'm going to show you how to be ready for Black Friday with auto scaling on JBoss EAP. So back straight into Black Friday. I've spent a lot of money already, and I know it's so hard to say no to all of this. I've got a fitness tracker here, which is actually has a stress little meter here, so I press it and it tells me to breathe. I bought a Swiss Army knife, and there's so many nice things, but did you know that most people actually start buying and looking around in October, and then there's a huge spike in November that people start to actually go and do purchase, and sites just fall out. You know, our major retailer in South Africa, there hasn't been 1 year that Black Friday hasn't actually taken it down. So how do you do this now with your application service? So first of all, you need to understand, you need to plan ahead, but you also need to plan ahead. There's a little bit of a business strategy involved in that you should plan to lower your costs. And I know you were saying to me, what do you mean lowering your costs? Because if there's any seasoned RT managers listening to me right now, you'll know that what you do when you purchase a service, you purchase 3 years upfront, and you say how much is the maximum load that you're going to get. But in the cloud, you want to actually not do that, because you've got all of those resources. You want to actually minimize it to the minimum load and get a pay-as-you-go process to scale out. And that's really the novelty here, though, that you want to lower the cost, because Black Friday can actually be quite expensive if you don't actually load. So here's our business strategy that we're going to do. One, we're going to high utilization of resources. So we're going to look at our resources and see how we can actually use them the best. Then we're going to elasticity without reserving capacity. So without having to have 5 or 6 servers upfront and hot servers, we're going to have some cold servers there, and then we're going to elastically scale into those servers and with that capacity. Upper limits and lower limits are under our control. I want to be in control of how many servers is the maximum and also how many servers is the minimum, and then scale dynamically between the difference, the delta between those two. And finally, pay as you go. I want to be, when I scale up in that Black Friday spike, I want to be able to just pay for the resources that I use. And we do this with a technical approach. So first of all, what is the technical approach? So I need to scale specific apps. I've got specific apps though, and those they have a fine purpose. Then you scale the number of individual app instances, and you can actually do that. You know, I've seen customers and clients and Azure users who have tens of thousands of apps on the web. Now with JBoss EAP on App Service, you actually have one server, and you can do multiple WAR deployments, web application archives there, and you can have them on one server, or you can have multiple servers there also and scale them. High availability cluster is coming, but you want to scale the number of individual app instances. Then scale differently on weekends. And you do that when you scale down to one instance in the weekend, and then during the week, then you scale up and you set the limit, the lower limit and the upper limit, depending on the day of the week. Scale differently during holidays. Thanksgiving is coming. Do you know how much is spent on Thanksgiving? And you want to, during the holiday season, override the defaults and have more capacity at your disposal. Finally, we want to scale in different custom metrics. And I've got an example here that I'll show you. You want to scale based on CPU or memory. So this example here, I've got an autoscale set up with my JBoss server, and it's metric driven. You can see that there's two parts of the screen. One is the, I want to scale based on CPU percentage. If it goes greater than 6, then scale up and increase the count to 1, maximum of 3 servers. And then if I want to also scale according to a timeline on weekends or weekdays or holidays, I can actually do it. So it's metric driven. You can also scale the instance counts manually if you want, can be scheduled, and then execute it in workflow of matching conditions. So if one workflow triggers, then it won't necessarily trigger the next one. It will be the least condition that it will execute. You can see here the auto scaling settings. You also give a run history. So in this example here, I scaled up to 3 instances, watched the CPU, and then I scaled down there gracefully down when the CPU and what we saw previously was under 4%. And you get all of these nice little views here and metrics to monitor your scaling. You get an activity log, you get tracing, and then you get notifications on webhooks. So as you scale, if you want to trigger a DI, a distributed a CI/CD or a DevOps pipeline, you can actually do it based on webhooks. So now that we've got our plan around how we can lower costs and how we can use JBoss EAP with Black Friday coming up right now, let's look at how a nice platform that we can actually leverage off and start using some of the features of JBoss, and introducing Eclipse MicroProfile. So this started all the way back when Jakarta EE and Java EE at the time started looking at lowering the size of the platform. So it MicroProfile, literally just what is needed. And what is needed is, first of all, you've got an open source community, then they drive the specifications, and they tie into a large community of individuals, organizations, and vendors who look at those specifications and they vote on it to say that makes sense, that doesn't make sense. And the community has got IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, Tommy Tribe, Red Hat, Lightband, and they tie into all of these implementations. So for each one of these servers, you've got Wildfly, Quarkus, you've heard of Quarkus, Payara, Open Liberty, Teledron, Thorntail, and the latest version 3.3 has been released in February. And so what does this do? So it's a micro profile of all of the services that you need to actually drive your microservices and your applications. It's got open tracing, open API, REST client, config, fault tolerance, metrics, JWT, health, CDI, JSONP, JAX-RS, JSONP, nearly everything you need to kind of drive your modern web application. And MicroProfile 3.3 actually did a lot of updates around this and aligned really nicely to the Jakarta EE standards. Now, it's not perfectly Jakarta EE, but they really do a lot of implementation around it. Now, the tooling is very mature. You've got VS Code, Visual Studio Code tines, you've got IntelliJ tines. There's a really nice MicroProfile starter we were going to go through there, and a lot of extensions that have already been created. Let's go through some of its features and see how, now that we know that Black Friday is coming, how we're going to actually leverage the features. So first is Open API, or Swagger, if you're not aware of it. And you generate Open API Swagger documents from JAX-RS endpoints. And JAX-RS is the standards for RESTful services for Java, basically WSDL for REST. And then this is enabled for default for MicroProfile application. This is a great idea. It means that every time that you create a REST application, you'll get your Swagger documents created, your OpenAPI documents for you. And it's as simple as just going at get and at the operation and the API response, and it'll create your Swagger documentation for you. No more fiddling around with your application there to get your Swagger created. And it's standardized on what MicroProfile believes is the real server, JAX-RS provider, and the client. We're going to see how you can do that though, because there's so many different ways to consume RESTful services also. Open tracing, so removes the challenges of tracing. You're going to do distributed systems, and you need to have instrument microservices for distributed tracing. And the real standards are the Jaeger and Zipkin, and this actually binds it with the open standard specification. And it's as simple as writing an annotation at trace there, and you get that open tracing, and then you can tie into the many different libraries there that you have, Zipkin and also Jaeger, to get your tracing. And understand also, it's not offered just yet, but Azure is going to offer this as also part of their distributed tracing using the very similar technology in the roadmap coming up. JWT, so JWT is your OAuth and its security for stateless RESTful services. Basically what OAuth 2, OpenID Connect, and JSON Web Tokens do, and it's SAML for REST. And you can do enterprise Java binding for the JWT specification. Security end-to-end with your RESTful services. Rory, but these are stateless, I know, but you can still do session-based with your stateless REST services. And it's as simple as having an annotation going get and roles allowed on your method variables. Configuration, distributed Eclipse. So Java EE never really focused on dynamic configuration. You have to have XML files and property files, but with MicroProfile applications need to have configured based on a running environment. So MicroProfile config allows for modification of configuration values without repackaging. And if you've ever worked with Delta Spark or Apache Tamaya, then this is really, really influenced by that. You inject your config property above your getters and setters. It's as simple as that. And I'll show you with the actual demo. You think this is complicated, but it literally is one kind of command, and you'll get all of these features. So the REST client, so JaxRS it's kind of a difficult library to use. It's got a powerful client API, but can be hard to use and not really type safe. So there are several JaxRS implementations already exist. And just like JaxRS and sub clients, you want to standardize on it. So MicroProfile standardizes on this capability from the start, and it gives you a client library that allows you to have type safe and also JaxRS without having to worry about the implementation. So you can see there, we've got the implementation there, REST client builder, new builder, base URL build, and everything is handled for you. Health checks. So you've got your two types of health checks, your liveliness and your health probes, and they probe the state of a machine from another machine. This is really made famous with Kubernetes service controllers to make sure that your node is really maintained, and it automates the reporting on the state of cloud nodes. And you just add a little annotation there, add health onto your health check, and you can check disk space and then wire it in. Metrics, and this is really designed for distributed systems. So it adds well-known monitoring endpoints and values for each process. So think of this as your logging, your distributed logging that you can add your metrics for. And it really targets your cloud environments with distributed metrics and your registries and your console. So you can see there timed, and you can get all of the different metrics there. And then you can also have counted, and you can start to actually design your metrics. Fault tolerance. So fault tolerance, remember Hystrix, Netflix OS, being able to have your circuit breaker. So this is, now you can actually define more than one strategy. You can leverage different strategies to guide the execution, retry policy, bulkheads, circuit breakers. Fallbacks offer an alternative result. So you can have your circuit breakers and then also fallbacks. And then obviously it's influenced by Hystrix and failsafes. You can have there, you can see the circuit breaker there and the timeout and the bulkhead. So you can really kind of say my microservices aren't working and programmatically handle different scenarios. So in summary, that was MicroProfile. So MicroProfile fills an important gap with Java EE and microservices. JBoss App Service is right now in public preview. I'm going to show you how to use them now in the demo. Auto scaling, great way to handle Black Friday, great way to lower your costs and also to reach that production grade system without having to, incur and not using your resources or costs. And then time to start, quick start, demo time. We're going really well for time now. So let's look at our demo. So it's a pretty simple step. Remember I said to you, start.microprofile.io. So you can see here on my right-hand side that microprofile.io, you've got a little window here, and it just says the group ID. So we're going to set it at com.example. The microprofile version, so the latest version is 3.3. The project options, the MicroProfile runtime, we're going to choose Wildflower. So if you don't know Wildflower, Wildflower is the downstream version of JBoss, meaning it's the open source version, and it really is the same version as JBoss, but it's kind of like not got the added support for your Red Hat Enterprise support agreement. Then you've got the artifact ID, we're going to keep it a demo. And then the Java standard edition version, you can choose Java 8 or Java 11. Now for this demo, I haven't done JWT auth tokens because I'm not going to do a long auth exercise. I've also not switched on metrics and then the type safe REST client, but I have switched on config. We're going to show you how that works. Health checks, open tracing, fault tolerance, and then open API with your Swagger definitions. Now you can actually, the little button there, go download, or you can actually curl it. So you can see there, we've got our little, our curl URL that we're going to do there, creates a demo.zip. We're going to unzip that demo.zip in the demo. And then we're going to deploy that. And recently, last week, the product team has advised me that they now have a Maven plugin, meaning that this is all you need to do, those 4 commands to drive and create an Azure App Service with the MicroProfile, with all of the services that I'm going to do. I know, Rory, that sounds too good to be true, but we're going to see it right now. Then we're going to look at our logs, and then finally we're going to browse to the website to show you how it works. And then I'm going to show you and go through some of the homework so we can actually discuss the homework and how you're going to get your hands dirty on this though. So let's go out of the slides here. Let's go into my terminal client here, and let's clear that. Hopefully that is big. Let me make it a little bit bigger. And it's command. Remember, I am new to Mac. If you have been following me on these sessions, you'll know that my Mac journey has been interesting and tumultuous. And then I'm going to take the first little command here, the curl, and you can see here, I've got a little project. I've already created my project directory, JBoss Reactor. Now I'm going to paste the curl command there. And the curl command is really going to go into my start.microprofile.io and then API project, and then supported server equals to wildfly, giving my group ID that we discussed before, com.example, and artifact equals to demo, so that's the actual project name, and also the MicroProfile version 3.3, the Java version, Java 8, 1.8, and then the selected specs. Remember, we only chose 5 of the 7, so I've got config, fault tolerance, health checks, open API, and open tracing. So I just hit enter, and it creates my demo.zip. Yay! I can go there, and I can go unzip a demo.zip, and I can go into my demo folder, and it's got my POM, which is my Maven POM, my readme.md, and my source file. Now, I actually want to go into Insider's edition of Visual Studio Code here, because I want to show you how, and some of the code. I want to go Code Insiders. I always get that wrong. So here's my Visual Studio Code, and we're going to be running off this from now on. Let's make it bigger. Come on, plus, bigger. And we've got our source folder here. We'll close there. You've got the MicroProfile start page here, target folder, the POM. So we can go through our POM here. You can see there that the POM has the com.example, the demo that we created, the snapshot. We're going to use WAR packaging. You can use ERA packaging also, Maven compiler, the Wildfly version, version 19. The actual final name. Then I've got my dependencies here. So I've got the MicroProfile library here, and then I've got my Wildfly package here that I want to use, and also the layer for that, and then also the spec for the JaxRS if I want to use the client libraries, which we're not actually going to use. So that's it. That's my POM that I have. Let's go through the actual project. You can see it's Visual Studio Code is so clever. It actually built it in the background. It's created my target folder already. So I've got my Java resources and web app folder that we've created. So in my Java folder, I've got my config, health, resilience, demo REST application, and hello controller. So in my demo REST application, that's my root context, and you can see there that my root context is going to be set as data. So I'll use my URL of my website and then /data, and then the actual application I'm going to use, and it's just got my demo REST application, and that extends the application, and that is the JaxRS core application. Notice this isn't Spring, this is the actual Jakarta EE libraries here. So let's close that, and let's go see our hello controller. So this is a little REST controller, and we've got a singleton bean EJB. When last did you see EJB? So look at that, JaxOS inject singleton. I've got my singleton bean there, path hello world. So I've got hello, and then it's just going to say hello world, and it's a get. So that's we're going to hit it first, and that's our hello world. Then in my config, so this is my distributed config, and my distributed config, then we're going to inject the name, injected value into my properties here, and then we can actually look up the value here once we do that injection. My health check, I've also got my service health check here, so health check response, and I can tie this into a liveliness probe, and this is great for Kubernetes because this is out of the box going to be Kubernetes ready. And then I've also got my readiness pros also there for my Kubernetes nodes for the readiness pros. For my resilience, remember the circuit breaker. I've got path resilience here, and I've got my fallback here. So if it takes more than 500 milliseconds, then I can actually go fallback answer due to timeout or never run from normal processing. And you can play around with that sleep and those settings there. So yeah, that's my project. Now I can actually, because it is actually tied in, go into Azure, and I can do everything of the deployment actually from there Azure App Service tile from inside Visual Studio Code, and it's released recently, got released like last week. So I can actually go in there, create a JBoss application server, and also go in and create a Maven plugin. So I just wanted to show you that quickly before we go into our Maven plugin. So I'm going to call this here Reactor Test RPZA. And runtime stack, you can see that we're going to choose Java 8, and then I'm going to choose JBoss EAP 7.2. How cool is that? And done. It's just created my app service. Now, if I wanted to deploy it, I could just right-click on that and deploy. But I want to show you the Maven plugin. I can just go to deploy web app. It'll find the WAR and deploy it, and that's via your IDE. So let's go back into our terminal here. I want to show you the Maven plugin here because this does everything also for you out of the box with two command lines. So I'm going to do Maven web app plugin config first, and I put the version there so I don't actually have to put the modify my POM, and this is going to say to me what subscription you want, what is the actual application service you want to create, and then I'm going to do a deployment after that into my app service. And it's going to create it for me, it's going to actually set it up for me, and it's going to scan my application there, that WAR file that we created. Let me just make sure that I have my WAR file there. Let's just go in my target folder here. Do we have a WAR? Oh, I'm going to have to WAR file it. I completely forgot about that. So after that, so let's do the config first, and then we'll do the deployment because I haven't created my WAR file. So I've got my subscription there that I've chosen. That's great. My Cloud Advocate subscription. Once this is happening, we can actually go look at the tailing of the logs. So I want to create my application there. So I'm going to choose one. I've already got a few there. I'm going to choose Linux. I can choose Docker or Windows. I'm going to choose the P1 V2, Java 8. I'm going to choose JBoss EAP 7.2. Yes. And when I do that, save the config, you'll notice that when I go back into Insiders Edition, no, I don't want to deploy that right now. When I go into my POM, I now have a deployment setting for, where were we? There we go. I've got now a Maven deployment setting for my web app that actually has all of my application specifics, and I can go in and change that, and that's always yours. You can always go change that though, and you can see there that's really what I want to deploy to. So I can go into that. I first want to just build this quickly, so I want to go view term. We'll build it from the other terminal there. So I want to go MVN, and I want to go in the package. Yeah, MVN package, and this should deploy our WAR file now, and we can go back into Insiders Edition and see, and you can even see that it starts up Wildflower. It runs all your tests that we have there. I don't think we have a lot of tests. I don't actually think we've got tests. Let's see, source Java. No, we don't have any tests, but if we did have a test, it would actually execute them, and it uses a Quillian actually in the background for that. Now we've got our WAR file, and we can see that here under target. We've got our demo.war file there, and there's also a demo.warfile.jar. And then we want to go and deploy that. And it's as simple as, instead of config, going deploy, sticky fingers, deploy. And the deploy will do the exact same. It's got your settings that you've got that you want to actually run with. And it's going to find your subscription. It's going to say, did the resource group, did it exist? If not, it's going to go create it. It's going to use your CLI credentials to actually do that. You can see the target web app doesn't exist, creating a new one, creating an app service plan. Now, app service plan is very interesting, but you can run multiple JBoss instances on one app service plan. Remember, an app service plan is basically your underlying server, and you can run multiple web apps on your app service plan, and it really gives you a nice way to consolidate costs, because you can run WebSphere, WebLogic, OpenLiberty, all of these things, even Kubernetes on one app service plan. Obviously, if you're going to hyper use it, then you overuse it or overextend it, you're going to run out of CPU space, and these all use kind of point-based system to say this server is going to use this many points over this period, I think I've covered that a little bit. You can use burst technologies. It's a very nice thing. P1 V3 is basically, I think it's 4 CPUs and 7 or 8 gigs of RAM. So it's a pretty meaty server, but you can go all the way up to 20 CPUs and 80 gigs of RAM, and even bigger in the server. So we've got our demo.war. It scanned it. It picked it up. I didn't even have to tell it. It's going to FTP it to the server, to the WW root on the app service platform there. Then once it has that in there, then it's going to unzip that WAR file, pop it into the JBoss server, load it into your application. And part of the homework also is you're going to work out how to change your JBoss config. So I've given you some links there for homework. You're going to work out how to change the default database that comes with a lot of the applications, and then you're going to actually tie in to a Postgres database, because you can, in your application, just say go modify the config there and tie into my Postgres database. At the same time that this is running to deploy, we can go into our portal here. So let's go into portal on azure.com. We can actually go and look at the log stream. Let's go and open the log stream. So I've got my portal here. We can go into app services. And we want to go to that one. Let's just make sure that is, this is called demo and it ends in 39. So that's demo and ends in 39. That's great. Let me make it a little bit bigger. And we want to make that full screen. I've got my blade here. This is what happens when you actually zoom in and zoom out and you don't look at your blade. Let me make it a zoom out. There we go. And I want to go into my demo, and then I can go into my logs here. So log stream, first time you do this is going to say, do you want to actually activate logging, application logging? So it's going to take a few seconds here. So we want to actually activate demo logging. There we go, reconnecting. You're connecting to the log stream service. This should actually bring out our JBoss server, and you'll see the JBoss server, it should have started already because JBoss is really quick. It's an enterprise grade server, and then it'll deploy the WAR file here, and then we can see, oh, it's actually deployed. So let's go reconnect here, and it's going to take a few seconds to actually get through here, but let's see if it's actually deployed in time. And what we should see is our application, and in our application we actually created a little web app. So we've got a web app here. It's got an index.html, and it just really talks to the hello world, the config injected, lookup, the resilience, and then the health checks, and the open API and open tracing. So we should be able to go browse here, and we should go straight into our application. Let me actually minimize that, because there we go. It's still coming through. So let's go to our log stream and see if we can get some streaming here. And we want to go in our log stream, see if our server, remember we created the server and we also deployed the application at the same time. So that's very optimistic to create all of that and to get that. There we go, starting JBoss application server, starting the live server. It's got the root.war. So when it copies your application, your demo.war there, it actually renames it to root.war. Okay, so there we go, HTTP listener. It's starting the root, the connection pools. So it's got a built-in connection pool to an H2 database, and then we're going to change that in the demo to H2. It's got all of these services that it's going to start up with the high availability admin console. So you can actually, if you want to SSH into that, the Java options, OpenJDK has started there. So the server's not ready just yet. And oh, there we go. The server is ready. So here's our demo. And now we created an enterprise grade server. We created an application. We deployed the application. We actually went in and we could modify that. And that was just 3 lines of code. And that's really what we wanted to do with this experience, and get you to see how easy it is to get started at. So the Hello Jax RS endpoint, you can click through there and you can see that it says Hello World. So that's one thing, right? Now I'm going to hit this with 1,000, and I did earlier with 1,000 transactions. I want to show you here what I did to scale out. So that little application that I did before, then I showed you that scale. So I hit the Hello World application there, and I set my scaling at scale out for an application that I created before. And it's as simple as going to scale out to your application service platform. I've got a custom auto scale created here, and I've got a scale on CPU percentage, and then scale down to decrease 1, and you can set it there for your scale conditions. And then I hit this with a couple of 1,000 transactions then, and you can see here over the last 24 hours, I kind of really scaled up and scaled down to handle and to test whether I would be able to handle my, you can see there, scale up and scale down. And this was at the CPU, wow, I must actually work out why my CPU jumped. My CPU jumped and I wasn't even aware of it at 20 minutes ago. And that's great to know because I didn't have to manage any of that. This thing just scaled up to 3 instances and then scaled down for me, lowered my costs for me, and then I can go into my notify and set my email alerts. And I don't have to, I can go on holiday now because I've set everything up for me. So let's go back to our application. You've also got your config values, configs by lookup, so you can actually go, see, you can see their lookup value. You can inject your config, no longer having static config. Failback after timeouts, you can click that, and then you can have your circuit breaker checks, and then you've got your live status with custom status and ready status, your open API documentation, and then if you've got your Jaeger tracing, you can just plug it into your Jaeger all-in-one tracing there. And this is in the roadmap. We're going to provide this also with our normal services. My watch actually says that I've been so lazy because I haven't actually moved. Remember, this is my health checker there, and it's actually said you haven't moved in an hour, Rory. Okay, I got you. It vibrates a lot. So cool. So, and then I've got my application. So what about the homework, Rory? You told me about the homework. Let's go back to the homework. So this one, you can try this nice little quick demo that here, and you can get started with JBoss EAP on Azure. And 2 is you can actually go to these slides here with the QR code, and we've got a nice demo, and I'm going to show you how to take the Postgres JBoss in Azure. And what you're going to create here is you're going to create a pet store with that demo. So this pet store here. Now this pet store actually uses Postgres underlying, and I changed that by actually going in, and the demo will show you. You just take some of these settings here, the startup.sh in the demo, and the Postgres jar, and you copy it over to your server folder, and it's a great way to actually look at the internals of Azure. And then you restart your server, and you can go into your little pet store, and you can buy a phishing tag. And this is using a Postgres database. It was initially using H2 underneath there, and you can start on that with the workshop and tie into that. And it's pretty simple to get started with that. And you can access that on aka.ms/jboss-azure, and it's got the workshop, all of the slides that I mentioned today with the demos, and all of the details there. And Hazem, it would be great time to get some questions, and I think I'm just in time.
Just in time, and we got a few questions from the community members. Ram says, does this allow us to migrate a Java enterprise app directly from an on-premise to Azure and leverage all the Azure paths without making any other modifications? Any limitations on this that you know?
So that's a good question. So I've got an application, you can see my screen still. Now I'm a big fan of the JBoss EAP Quick Starts. So now the JBoss EAP Quick Starts, which one of the most extensive, is one of the most extensive application examples there, gives you everything around there. So I thought to myself, let me take the classic example that Steve Ballmer from Microsoft used to ask for interview questions. So if you've got a counter and you have to guess a number from 1 to 100, and you get $5, and every wrong answer that you do, you actually lose $1. And his question to you, to them would be, do you take the challenge or not? And if you work it out in your math, you shouldn't take the challenge because you would actually lose that. So we've got the number guess problem, and this is the normal JBoss application. And so I took the number guess problem here. And this is not even aware of JBoss. You can see the number guess problem here, and it's got your Java game generator, max number, random. I plugged into IntelliJ. You can also do it into Visual Studio Code, and then I just deployed it. I just deployed it straight to Azure on App Service. Now, if I go into my file here, and I go to number guess, I did this earlier today, and I've got my number guess application. There was no modification. It doesn't even know it's running on Azure. So to answer your question is yes. I think I took Hazem's breath away.
Yeah. I got another question from the community as well on cloud portability. So containerization was often advocated, Docker images on Kubernetes, We got now JBoss EAP on Azure, and for other cloud providers, is there a need to containerize? Is there a need to completely take off the container layer and the container registries?
So I've been a consultant for many years, and the classic answer to that is to answer with it depends. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. Containers serve a purpose because they let you have low-level control over the operating system and the layering of your application. But we've seen a drive towards less containers, especially with build packs. So build packs allow you to kind of use AI to scan your application and build the container for you. We've also seen managed services like Azure Spring Cloud, so that sits on top of Kubernetes, and you no longer need to worry about containers. So if you want lower-level control, great, containers. If you want platform as a service, then JBoss EAP, Azure Spring Cloud, and some of the higher base managed services.
All right, I think that was it for the community questions. Thank you so much, Rory, for today's talk. We love the information and the experience you bring into the sessions, and definitely the high energy.
Please tweet this to Steve Ballmer, right? Because I didn't get a question like this in my interview process, though. But yeah, so I'm thinking of a number. You've got 0 and 100. You have 10 guesses. You lose $1 of that. You've only got $5. Do you take the challenge? The classic response is no, because if you do the math, you're going to lose the $5 before you actually do it, because there's more multiples and tranches of that. It's a sort algorithm, and yeah, please tweet it to him. And as before, take your homework, aka.ms/jboss-azure. Thank you so much, Hazam. It's been a privilege and a pleasure.
Thank you so much. The link is available for our community. And actually, I want to start sharing my screen, and I want you to highlight we have one more session that we're doing this month together. So I want you to, okay, just
really let me share my screen. I've got that great
please do
session coming up. Yes, I've got this session. I was so excited. So we got Terraform your project. Now Terraform is it feels like magic. You just do 2 little selections and builds everything. Builds your database for you, your application service, your security, your platform. It's literally, it builds a cloud in the cloud in one go. And the first time I really did this with Azure, I fell in love with it. It was literally like driving a turbo car that you've only ever driven naturally aspirated cars before. It is just magical. Really come to the session. It will really make a difference to your cloud experience, knowing how to Terraform. You can just create your environment, tear it down, create your environment, tear it down, create your environment, tear it down. It's just a great experience. I'll see you there. And then obviously also we've got the Reactor survey link there. So you can go ak.ms/reactor/survey. You can enter that event code 12248 at the start of the survey. It'll be great to see you and take the survey.
That's great. And a quick reminder, the session is recorded and it will be available later on the Reactor YouTube channel. So make sure you're subscribed. You'll find it there very soon. The survey is also a great channel for you to share with us all the interesting topics that you would love to see at the Reactor. Connect with us on Twitter. The hashtag is Reactor Abu Dhabi, and MSFT Reactor is the Twitter handle. And definitely tweet about today's session and tag Rory Preddy at Rory Preddy. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you on the next one. Goodbye.
Cheers, everyone.